afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome you to this high-level engagement on feedback from citizens on the findings of the Parliamentary Performance Scorecard. We are privileged here to be with a number of guests. We have AFLI's partnering radio station from 15 sub-regions of Uganda. Please raise your hand and we recognize you. Thank you very much. In the audience, we also have a representative from the board of Africa Leadership Institute. May you raise your hand? We have partners from the Uganda Management Institute, which is one of the key partners of AFLI in implementing the Parliamentary Performance and Civic Engagement Project. In the audience, we also have the country caretaker of the Uganda National Association of the Blind. We also have NODIPU, that is National Union of People with Disabilities, members of other media houses, and the staff of Africa Leadership Institute. This occasion is being hosted by myself as the MC. I am Gerald Werike Wanzala, and I will be assisted by my colleague, Angela Martina. Ladies and gentlemen, you recall that in July 2020, we launched the Parliamentary Performance Scorecard 2018-2019. It stimulated debate across the country, and as we were listening to citizens, they had a number of recommendations that they made to the state agencies to help improve our democratization process. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our program will not be long. You have known already the issues that will be presented pertaining to the event. We shall have opening remarks from Dr. Kasozi Mulindwa, the Director of Programs at Uganda Management Institute, who will strictly use 5 minutes to give opening remarks before we proceed. Then thereafter, we shall have the Executive Director of the Africa Leadership Institute, Honorable David Pulkol, who will highlight those issues, the recommendations from citizens that will be the basis for our discussion this afternoon. After his presentations, we expect independent analysis from 3 very important guests, keynote speakers who we invited here, beginning with Right Honorable Margaret Ziwa. You know her, she has been a name in Uganda. She was in the CA. She represented Kampala women for about 15-20 years. She went to the East African Legislative Assembly. She became a speaker of the East African Legislative Assembly, where she came, and now she's a chairperson, governing council of the Uganda Management Institute. We shall also have another panelist, the Deputy Executive Director of the Alliance for Campaign Finance Monitoring. The Executive Director will tell you why we invited Alliance for Campaign Finance Monitoring. We shall also have thereafter Mr. Byekwaso Charles, the country caretaker of the Uganda National Association of the Blind, because there are issues that pertain to representation. Ladies and gentlemen, from there, we shall have a symbolic handover of some of AFLI products, like the translated Braille scorecard to the Uganda National Association of the Blind, and the Parliamentary Committee Hansard of our Parliament, which is produced by the Africa Leadership Institute. Ladies and gentlemen, after that, we shall have a speech from a representative of DGF, and then we shall also have remarks from the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Right Honorable Jacob Olanya, who is expected here in a moment from now. Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention to the issues being raised, and then later they will help us move the discussion forward in our democratization process. With those remarks, I would like to invite the guest speakers to take up their seats. Thank you. And then I take the opportunity to invite the Director of Programs and Students Affairs of Uganda Management Institute to give opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Werike. Our guest, Honorable Margaret Natonguzua, who also happens to be a member of UMI Governing Council. It's a great honor and privilege to UMI and myself to welcome you all to this high-level engagement in the feedback from government about the findings from the parliamentary performance scorecard report. In a special way, allow me to welcome our expected guest, Right Honorable Jack Bolanya, who in spite this survey period has found time to be here with us. And the same thing applies to Honorable Margaret Zua. I know she's very busy in her campaign, sacrificing and to be here this afternoon. We cannot take it for granted. It shows your commitment to UMI and AFRI and also to democracy in the country. UMI partnership with AFRI started in 2018, and people may ask, why did UMI partner with AFRI? As most of you are aware, UMI's mission is to excel in developing sustainable, practical leadership, administration, and management capacity. And one of our values is about professionalism, transparency, and accountability. So when we are requested by AFRI to partner with them in this project, we found their values, we are marking our values, and their project was matching with our mission. So we didn't find any problem in joining you. The Parliamentary Performance Scorecard Report is an important management tool in promoting and enhancing political accountability. There is no doubt that the recommendations in the report have been based on researched evidence or findings. They are not abstract. On behalf of UMI, I can testify to that, because part of our responsibility in the partnership is to ensure is quality assurance. And I can say without contradictions that whatever is in the recommendation, they are not abstract, but they are grounded in the findings on the ground. Therefore, I have no doubt that the report will improve the people's representatives and enhance democracy. We help the representative to reflect on the findings and the recommendations, and by doing that, we'll be promoting accountability and democracy. Let me take this opportunity, since I'm supposed to make opening remarks, to thank AFRI for the seriousness, professionalism, and the transparency they have exhibited with us as their partners, and we don't take that for granted. Transparency and accountability, and I believe you are leading by the example. Finally, we will not be here, we will not be having this report if we didn't get funding from the Democratic Governance Facility. So on behalf of Uganda Management Institute, allow me to extend our thanks to DGF for supporting our partnership and the initiative we are making to make Uganda a more democratic, transparency, and accountable society. With those remarks, I once again thank you, and I look forward to the feedback from this engagement. I say, merci beaucoup, asante sana, mwebale nnyo, thank you very much for God and my country.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kasozi, for those not only beautiful words, but very intelligent words. Members, let's give him another round of applause. At this moment, I would like to invite the Executive Director, Africa Leadership Institute, to come and make his presentation. Honorable, you're welcome.
Wow, distinguished guests and Dr. Kasozi Mulindwa, Right Honorable Margaret Ziwa, our own and very own. We've been together in many struggles in leadership, but it's good to see you here, representative of DGF, the panelists of experts that are here, and ladies and gentlemen, our partners. This is a multi-stakeholders program where we are participating with academic institutions, we from civil society, and then media houses, both up-country as well as represented here in Kampala. And we are also partnering with other civil society organizations like Citizens CSBAG, Citizens Budget Advocacy Group, NGO Forum, Debt Network, Action Aid, Youth Network, Women in Governance. There are quite a number of different stakeholders we are working with, including 6 institutions of higher learning, where we are experimenting Students' Guild Performance Scorecard. While we are mentoring, while we are working with the Parliament, constituted with adults, leaders, now in those official positions, we are mindful of the fact that people like Honorable Jacob Olanya was a guild speaker of Makerere, and today is a deputy speaker of Parliament of Uganda. And there are several of them, including Rwakana Rugunda, who are guild presidents, Mtebile, and there are many others, the Otunus, the Maos, the Who, including even the one who succeeded Margaret Siwa in Yala, that is Honorable Kidega, was a speaker in Chambogo University. So we know that young people will definitely arrive to these positions. And now when they arrive, what mentorship takes place to prepare them for this leadership position. So allow me to go straight to the recommendations from citizens. We launched the scorecard, and went around the country. We are so thankful to citizens of Uganda and basically you, the media partners, for rapidly taking the scorecard to the population. Within a matter of hours, citizens already had the scorecard, the e-version of the scorecard, and they were able to discuss intelligently with concrete evidence in their hands on different radio stations, on different media platforms, social media platforms. We thank the New Vision for even sponsoring, co-sponsoring this event through their radios, their TVs, and also the newspaper itself, serializing the scorecard. And we thank Ipsos, which has given us a very good report because it was monitoring both radio, TV, social media, and so forth. All this engagement was monitored and was being recorded. We have audios, we have videos of photographs of what happened countrywide. But today, we are giving you 17 recommendations that came from citizens. One, the citizens are saying the assessment in the scorecard should not be on MPs' personal projects in constituencies. You can imagine MPs are buying ambulances, they are buying beds, they are buying chairs, tents, and supporting saucepans for burials and so forth. Some of them are even putting fuel in graders and so forth to work on the roads. They are taking the role of government. They are substituting for different departments and ministries and agencies of government on limited budgets money they have. It's putting a lot of heavy toll on MPs to do, and yet their constitutional role is not that. Their role in the Constitution is legislation, is representation, is oversight, appropriation, and exemplary leadership. So citizens are saying this will end up redefining the role of MPs. They should instead focus on the constitutional roles of MPs. That's the recommendations they are making. So it means MPs must go to Parliament. If it is a bursary, please put a bursary scheme for the whole Uganda. If it is ambulances, give enough budget to Ministry of Health to buy ambulances so that you don't have to buy ambulances. If it is roads, please, then you only be the one to supervise. You concentrate on policy. But when you don't budget properly and give those departments those things, then there are gaps. And now the burden falls on you. Recognition number 2. The youth under the Youth Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda are concerned about the fact that youth MPs do not represent them effectively. Youth are very concerned because the youth elected are above their 20s. They are in their late 20s. Immediately they come to Parliament, they start shifting to nursing a new constituency because soon they will reach the age of over 30 and now they want to move. So they no longer represent the youth. They have no accountability to those who elected them. They begin to focus on nursing another constituency. So they recommend that youth should be younger at the time of their election, probably below 25 years, so that they have a possibility of serving another term. Then the youth fraternity can benefit from their youth MPs. Next. 3, citizens further want the law to be amended to bar MPs from being appointed to serve as ministers in order to uphold the independence of Parliament and the principle of separation of powers between the executive and the legislature. The citizens are concerned that because an MP may not want to talk the truth, to say things the way they are, because he or she does not want to jeopardize the chance of being appointed minister. So they get compromised. They begin to look at the appointing authority as a father, as a what, to please the executive instead of being a supervisor, a nyampara of the executive on behalf of citizens of Uganda. And you find in Chankwanzi, you find the executive come there with uniform and their pips, and the MPs are given green uniform without pips. And you find the MP saluting the executive instead of the executive saluting the MP, because who is the boss of who? So this is really what citizens are saying. 4, they also want biometric system of Parliament to be used for voting as opposed to only using attendance of plenary. Or sometimes those in favor say aye, to the contrary say nay. Then they say I have it. But citizens want a verifiable system whereby you can hold your leader that on this issue you voted, okay? And there is evidence. But now there's no evidence because they just said by acclamation. This way it will make it easier to track personal voting record of MPs on issues in Parliament for posterity and also to accountability to citizens so that people stop hiding. We know on this one you supported, there's evidence. Next, 5. Citizens want Parliament to avail to AFLI the list of MPs who are officially authorized to travel, for example, or take leave, so that we get a record of excused absence. Because before you absentee yourself from the House, you seek approval from the Speaker of Parliament. But unfortunately, that file is not given to us. So we are not able to know in the absentees those who are excused and those who are intentionally absent for purpose of verifying those who dodge parliamentary business or intentionally abuse public trust given to them of representation, and yet this affects quorum and performance. 6, citizens are concerned with the behavior of some MPs, including regular allegations of corruption and bribery. We keep hearing that Parliament has been bribed. Parliament has been bribed. So, and of corruption and bribery to pass bills or to kill bills. Okay, like when you see the domestic relations bill, it has not come. You know where it is, and yet it's so important. So to pass supplementary budgets, like we give you money on COVID, but you also give us, you know, that type of, then you also vote for yourselves. So this is what citizens are concerned, that they recommend strengthening of disciplinary measures to curb such unacceptable behavior or vices. Next, they want leadership of Parliament to strengthen discipline in the House, to uphold and indiscriminately enforce parliamentary code of conduct and rules. If the rule of procedure says nobody should absent himself 15 days consecutively, now we have evidence where some people have not been in the House. They are earning salary, they are not being thrown out according to the rules of procedure. So the citizens are saying, please apply your own rules of procedure, apply the code of conduct indiscriminately. 8, citizens are concerned that Parliament is increasing in number, and yet the quality of MPs' deliberations in the House is deteriorating, because each one is given only 3 minutes. Now, what can you do in 3 minutes? You may not be able to do research and really bring out issues. So what are citizens saying? They propose creation of another chamber like the Senate, so that you have a lower house and a upper house, rather than creating more constituencies. By limiting the number, they will have more time to present their well-thought, well-researched deliberations. Secondly, the second chamber will be able to scrutinize further the decisions made by the lower house, and therefore the quality of decisions taken by the legislature will improve. Next, 9, currently, the women composition in Parliament leadership stands at 33%. If you're speaker, the official offices, chief whip, lead of government business, there are those offices that are held in Parliament. When we counted, we found there were only 33%. And the citizens are saying, although this passes the constitutional requirement of 30%, the women suggest they need more women in parliamentary leadership. And we agree with them. They certainly deserve more. I think it's time for us to move to 40% or even 50%. Next, 10. Citizens also want AFLI and its partners to include attendance of district council meetings in the scorecard assessment in order to make MPs reinforce their oversight role in constituencies and strengthen feedback and accountability. We found a majority of MPs do not attend district council meetings. Although the Local Government Act 2007, as amended, is already requiring MPs to attend district council meetings. So what are the citizens saying? They are saying that it will enable feedback and also MPs to pick issues to bring to Parliament if they were to attend district council meeting. Citizens further want MPs to have periodic feedback through regular, structured, and predictable quarterly constituency meetings, as opposed to meetings informal in burials, in weddings, cultural functions. They wish that each MP is required every 3 months to go to the constituency, to give a feedback, and even get views from citizens. And that meeting must be structured. It should be the basis for which you should claim your mileage, your per diem, and your fuel. Should be paid based on the minutes of those meetings, should be based on forms, attendance forms signed by local government leaders, and so forth. So photographs, videos, so that we make these MPs to work for us, for citizens. 12, The scorecard performance assessment should focus on entire 5 years, not only 3 years, what we are trying to attempt now. People think we are malicious. Where are we coming to assess when election is coming? And yet actually it was just availability of resources only for 3 years. So they are asking for, make it a 5-year program. Next. According to scorecard findings, we find that the public petition, the petitions which were presented to Parliament were 12. Only 2 were assigned to committees. So it makes petitioning Parliament meaningless. So citizens are saying, let Parliament prioritize when they receive a petition from any group of citizens. Please attend to those petitions because a petition is a public complaint. Next, citizens are recommending a law to regulate campaign financing to include MPs. At the moment, it's about political parties or financing to declare their sources and account to Electoral Commission. And I think they don't even do it. But anyway, we have experts here. But the citizens want MPs also and other political leaders to declare the source of their funding and submit accountabilities to elections. This will avoid illicit money from money laundering, from drug barons, from what being used to bring people to leadership. And next, the person with people with disabilities, of course, AFLI wants to differ. We call them differently abled persons. Because if you tell me now to read a braille, I will not be able to read this braille. Who is now disabled? I think I am disabled. So, and they are differently abled. If you tell me to sign language, I will fail. I'm a disabled at that point. So let's just agree that they are differently abled persons. And I think that's what they are. So what are they saying? They are saying we should amend the law to allow the MPs to be elected at regional level like the way the youth MPs are elected, as opposed to the current practice where the district representatives are brought to the central place in Kampala and put in a hotel, and then it is easy to compromise. I think it is good if they could vote at the regional level. That's what they are recommending. Now, key observations, as a result of these, there are policy recommendations. I will not go to the observation, the composition of parliament, representation. Go to next, legislation. These are our findings. Next, oversight. Next. Let's now go to recommendations, appropriation, conclusion. Let's go to recommendations. Legislative procedures should be reviewed systematically to compel MPs to work within the prescribed time period. There's a lot of backlog in Parliament. To reduce backlog, you find the 8th Parliament handed over to 9th Parliament. 9th Parliament hands over a backlog to 10th Parliament. And 10th Parliament, so please work within time. So improve attendance. The next is to improve attendance. Parliament of the Republic of Uganda next should revise current rules of procedure attaching specific emoluments to attendance. The MPs have consolidated their package. It is not tied to your being in the house. As a result, you find out of 108 meetings of plenary, an MP attended only 7. But the salary is flowing. And so citizens are saying separate attendance, emoluments, and also attach salary to, should be supported by a retributive system that compels MPs to attend sufficient portion of parliamentary business, including attaching salary to a percentage of monthly work time you work in the house. You should not just be getting salary automatically. How many, what percentage of parliamentary business have you attended this month? And then you are paid instead of just automatically. Next, Parliament should schedule and compel MPs to hold regular, structured, and quarterly feedback consultative meetings. I think I've already addressed myself to this. Next, Parliament should increase funding for research department to generate data so that when legislators talk, they talk from researched and informed basis in terms of knowledge, improve quality of bills, and gain confidence to discuss a wide range of issues on the floor of Parliament. And then Parliament should introduce speakers list constituted by a panel of MPs who can do research and are given a bit longer time, like 10 minutes. And then when you give others 3 minutes, they only complement. So you make sure that the threshold of information, of knowledge that comes out in any debate is assured. But now when you give everybody 3 minutes, what can you say in 3 minutes? Next, the order paper should be circulated to ministers in a predictable timetable so that the ministers can prepare to answer questions, and strict timeliness should be set to ministers to provide feedback. In the Zambian parliament, a minister is given 60 days within which to report back to Parliament. When Parliament has resolved something, you must report back within 60 minutes, 60 days on what you have done to implement that. In the case of Uganda, there's no time frame. You just go forever and ever and ever. So the next one is Library and Public Relations Department of Parliament should expand readership of the Hansard, non-classified parliamentary committee record should be available in libraries, in secondary schools, as a way to increase public knowledge. Parliamentary Hansard should not only be in the parliamentary website and parliamentary library. Next, Government of Uganda should consider adopting the parliamentary scorecard report as a key yardstick for performance of MPs and the institution of Parliament of Uganda. And I think that's where I can only say in Ngakari Mojong, Alakara Norway, meaning thank you very many.
Thank you very much, Honorable David Purcell. I think he gave us a lot. Let's give him another round of applause. At this moment, I will take the opportunity to invite Honorable Margaret Ziwa, one of our keynote speakers for today, to react to what has been presented, given her experience. Madam Margaret, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. for the opportunity. The director, my good friend and colleague, Honorable David Purcell, Uganda Management Institute, in representation and in person, and all our funders, good afternoon, and participants, good afternoon. It's an honor for me to join this very important panel to discuss the report which came out of a very exhaustive and intelligent and professional research which resulted into this parliamentary scorecard. And it's a very important tool to assess performance of the people's representatives. So I want to congratulate Dr. David Purcell and your team for this good work. Allow me to mention that out of the many years of public service or parliamentary service, I happen to have also had or to have fallen into this very important catchment of assessment. Although at the time, maybe not by the Uganda, rather the Dr. Purcell's arrangement, but by that time I think it was mainly the newspapers, mainly New Vision and Monitor used to carry out what they used to call assessment of MPs. And I think that eventually was better presented by the African Leadership Institute. And at one time, I was actually assessed as one of the best women MPs. I felt proud. Yes, I did. I think in the 7th Parliament, I was assessed one of the best women MPs. And even later on, when they were assessing the performance, actually, I think I featured among the best 5. So I want to many started questioning how it was done. Many started critiquing how the data was collected. And many others went also to assault the parliamentary records. But I want to tell you that as time went by, the parliamentarians started appreciating and accepting that they are public servants and they have to be assessed. So with that, I want to congratulate the African Leadership Center for this good work. I want also to say that the recommendations which came out of the parliamentary scorecard 2019-2020, you forgive me that I may not have put so much brain on it because of I'm like a grasshopper running around, and you know the reasons at this moment. I may not have put so much thought on it, but like rightly you said, I've lived many of these moments, and I can just give my quick oversight, or rather overview on them. Basing on the four roles as stipulated in the Constitution, namely the legislation, the representation, the oversight, and appropriation, I find the findings very, very correct. In some instances, they would have rightful observations, but they may fall short of what then should be done, or even what is proposed, how applicable will it be? I'll mention one or two or three if I can. Of course, the attendance of Parliament is so critical and crucial. And believe me, I want to congratulate Parliament of Uganda, because that register, Honorable Protocol, which we have already signed, is still there. My experience when I went to the East African Legislative Assembly, my members said, we are not bound to sign the register. We are diplomats. And if the Sergeant at Arms wants, let him write our names. And of course, within the rules, it is not clearly stipulated. So I want to say that in Parliament of Uganda, you can quickly and easily establish that Honorable David Purcell actually attended Parliament. Of course, when it comes to representation from this perspective, the constituents themselves, whom I'm going to request that we must find a medium of improving, of helping them or sensitizing them to know how best they need or what they need to demand from their members of Parliament. Because for them, they will seek the ambulance you're talking about. They'll seek the bridge. They'll seek the bursaries. To them, they want something practical and feasible, which relates to them, in most cases, individually. We've seen very good MPs losing a second term or a third term. When I was voted the best woman MP, I didn't come back to Parliament. Not because I didn't campaign so vigorously, but because maybe people were saying, maybe we need something more tangible. So this area needs to be worked on very seriously. I don't know whether it will be African Leadership Center or anybody else. Of course, this comes into the representative role. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, the youth, the recommendation of the youth, basing on the age. I know for sure, and I've seen it, Honorable Namayanja, for instance, Nsereko, all of them, Honorable Gwang, I can mention all of them. Once they do their term, the next time they are looking for a constituency. But at times you cannot be sure that they can be voted at 25 or below 25. And because of that, unless if you want also to amend the constitution to make their age go over and above 30. So this may not be very practical, but I think their observations as citizens is very, very important. Of course, I want also to say that dual role of the minister and MP, you know for sure the Odoki report had a very serious recommendation on it. They had actually recommended that let's have only, when you are MP, you will remain as MP. When you are minister, you shouldn't be an MP. But you know what happened? When this issue was brought, it was shut down. When I say shut down, members of Parliament felt, or ministers felt, that they are more secure being members of parliament than being ministers. That maybe you can, by a whim of a pen, be thrown out of cabinet, yet you are more certain that as a member of parliament, you'll have 5 good years, unless otherwise. Of course, you know there is a recall process, which I don't know whether it has ever applied to anybody. So that is also an area which you may need to look at a little bit more critically. Of course, I want to support the biometric system of voting, but of course, you must also appreciate that it exists. It exists. It's only that in some not so serious issues, the vote is high, and it's historical in the Westminster system. It's aye and nays. So it's historical. But when there are serious issues, definitely there is a biometric system of voting. It may be by side. You may go that side, and this record is there. So I think still, if it was very serious, people can actually know. How did you vote, for instance, when we were voting on what topical issue? You know, when I say that. It's very important that when a member is absent, this record must be availed, not just to the speaker per se, but to the committees where he or she serves, and also to the constituency. Sometimes it's critical, the member is sick. Other circumstances, maybe he has been officially assigned to do a certain job. So let us share this. I agree, I subscribe. Of course, I want to say that this issue of the allegations of bribery, of corruption, have come forth, and it's very common. But at times, it may not be substantiated. When I say substantiated, you know what I mean. When COSASE, is it COSASE committee? When it was doing its work, there was a lot of allegations. Perhaps at times when the people do not see you vote or go with their would-be, I should say, opinion, then they say something has happened. There are times also when some positions are taken, members are given money, for instance, to go and popularize or seek views, and people will say, you are bought. So this one is also an area which you also need to know that it has a basis. The view of creating an upper house, I personally subscribe to it. Personally. For instance, there are times when the caucus is used and used and used to make decisions which would have been ably filtered by the lower house and sent to the upper house. And the upper house gives it a more direct thought and maybe more well thought out ideas and views. But you find that this is not just, it's a constitutional matter. And you need to have very good justifications. I've had an opportunity to write a paper and share it with the Right Honorable Speaker Kadaga, share it with the Right Honorable Jacob Olanya, that we actually need we need to be bicameral. And this is the trend all the East African countries are going. You know, in Rwanda, they have 2 parliamentary, it's a bicameral. In Kenya, they are now bicameral. Tanzania is moving in the same direction. And in Uganda, instead of having members being lobbied, and when I say lobby, at times it's going to State House and coming back, going to caucus, coming back. When I say that, you know what I mean. So if we have a lower house and an upper house, we should have 2 levels of legislation thinking about the same issue, and eventually we should have what I would call a more well thought out decision. The periodic feedback, I subscribe to it. You need to know the modus operandi. Of course, the financing, campaign financing, to be limited. I don't even know whether you are able to monitor the ones you give for the parties or to the parties effectively. When I say that, you know what I mean. How will you know? Of course, there are mechanisms, but I don't know whether we have those who really look at them. Let me wind up by saying this is a very important scorecard. It has awakened many others. When I read through it, I saw some very good parliamentarians, both by academic professors, others by experience. They have been in parliament for 15 years, but they were performing very poorly. You know, if you read the report, you would see in parliamentary attendance, he gets 0. In effectiveness, he gets 0. So you say, what is the problem? So there are many more other factors which we need to capture. You captured religion, which is very good. Maybe somebody imagines that some religions emphasize maybe levels of integrity differently from others. You emphasized age. But let's also critically look at some of those people whom they imagine that they would be effective and very good, but they have performed very badly. The age cohort, the young people being more regular than the older ones. Does it fall across board? So these are some of the thoughts I had when I read through this. I apologize that I'll step out almost immediately because my mom is not so well, and that made me just to come, make an appearance to say I support the parliamentary scorecard arrangement, keep it up, and I want to thank our funders and also pat the back of Uganda Management Institute to have been part of this very important arrangement. Thank you very much, fellow Ugandans who have made this possible for God and my country.
Thank you, Right Honorable Margaret Ziwa. Those are very wise views. She has reminded us that the Odoch Commission actually recommended that ministers should not be MPs, and this was through a consultative process, as you recall. But if it has not been done over 20 years later, there are questions that citizens must ask. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to urge you to give her another round of applause. Now, within the few remaining minutes, I'm going to request our other panelists, beginning with Mr. Fred Musisi, Deputy Executive Director of the Alliance for Campaign Finance Monitoring. They have done a lot of research in this area. They should tell the country what is good and what is not good. You are most welcome, Mr. Fred Musisi.
Thank you, MC. Honorable Margaret Nantongoziwa, thank you so much for the remarks. Uganda Management Institute, thank you so much. Africa Leadership Institute, I applaud you actually for this partnership of yours with the Uganda Management Institute. I think it is a very, very brilliant idea that we need to embrace as civil society. Thanks so much. My name is Fred Musisi, and just want to make a correction. I'm not a Deputy Executive Director of ACFIM. I'm actually a board treasurer. My ED is not in town, and as you know, our work being campaign finance monitoring, this is our busiest moment. This is our busiest season. So everybody is in the field, including the Executive Director, Mr. Henry Mogozi. So I'm here to stand in for him to say a few things about this wonderful work. I want to thank the Africa Leadership Institute for this, because immediately the scorecard was released, I actually started hearing people discussing and commenting on various MPs. I will not name them, but they would mention a name and someone would, that one was among the worst performers. What are you saying? He has already lost. So this, this exercise, the citizens take it seriously, and it actually forms opinions. It helps it helps people to form their opinion and what they actually are likely to do in the next elections. I want to say a few things about some of the recommendations mentioned here. Honorable Ziwa has quite done a good job about commenting almost on all of them. But I would like to say something about not including the projects in the constituencies as when we are doing this. I think this is very, very important because most of these projects that MPs engage in their constituencies are totally outside their mandate. And that is a problem. One time we were working in a community, we are exactly on the same thing, talking about finance spending, MPs, bribing voters, and we had one police officer who was a facilitator, and he read the land and said, these ambulances that MPs are actually donating and they end up labeling them, this is illegal. If someone decides to donate it, he should hand it over to a health unit to manage, not the MP's office and campaigners to handle an ambulance. But because there is need for such services in the constituency, the people are divided. They don't know whether to appreciate the ambulance or to look at it as a bribery. That is very unfortunate. So this is very important that people must be always reminded that these gifts, good as they may seem, are actually unlawful. About the corruption and the bribery allegations, when MPs go to canvass for votes, for us as campaign finance monitors, one thing that they never stay away from is actually spending money in a questionable manners. And when these voters are like directly bought, so you are actually forming their perceptions. When you go into the house, every rumor about corruption and bribery, they will take it as, because you have already practiced it with them. Because if you can bribe a voter, then you can be bribed where you are going. So these MPs should actually desist from this, should stop bribing voters so that voters can trust them. Otherwise, when the voters are bribed, they lose their power, but also the MPs lose their integrity. So everyone has something to lose in this process. So, and coming to campaign financing, the recommendation is very, very good. But it is important to note that as ACFIM, we've been championing a private member's bill to respond to this need. But for reasons we might all know, we are moving towards elections and every MP was skeptical, never wanted to touch this piece of legislation, and we were advised that the best thing we could do is actually to think about the next parliament for us. So I call upon the Africa Leadership Institute that ACFIM would be willing to work with you to push this through, but we can only do this in the next parliament. When we made our research regarding the previous elections and we launched the report, the politicians came up with a new approach. This time around, we have witnessed pre-campaign financing growing a lot bigger than what it was before. So this is another dynamic that comes in, that when we are talking about bribery and bribing voters, When does it begin? Actually, some aspirants begin immediately after the elections to go out there and begin persuading people, giving gifts, but with one objective: see me 2021.